Hi guys, my name's Marcel, and if you look at the Loomis method like this, it's obviously looking very complicated, and that's coming from the guy who grew up speaking this language, so you know I'm aware what complicated means. But don't worry, because as you guys know, I animate all of my videos just so that y'all understand all of this a lot better. And judging by your reactions I got from my Instagram reels about the Loomis method so far, it seems like today's video will be a pretty reliable way of teaching you on how this works. Pretty sure you will understand how to draw a Loomis head after this video. So I will first explain to you how this method works as foolproof as I can, and then there's gonna be a step-by-step where you can draw along. Only thing I would ask of you would be to give this video a like. Animating all of this by yourself isn't a joke, so I would really appreciate that. Enough talking, let's get drawing. Like a sir. Alright, pretty sure you have seen a Loomis head before. It's this head with the circles on each side. The Loomis method is a method that is very closely orientated to the human skull. And a human skull isn't actually a perfect circle if you take a closer look at it. And that's exactly why you cut off these parts on the right and on the left side. And after you have added these crosshair guidelines, you are actually done with the base. The trick here is to add these crosshairs to each side though, like not only the front but also to the sides. Because that way you now have an incredibly powerful base. With this method you do not have to be afraid that your facial features are going to be completely off or have the wrong proportions. And that's all because of the circle on the side that you have seen before. That's what makes the Loomis method so genius, because you immediately know where your hairline starts, you know the height at which your brow line starts, you know where your nose ends. All of these points are right there, and since they all have the same spacing, you also know the height at which your chin is located, aka where your face ends. It's all like one big giant puzzle. And if you have drawn this base correctly and with the right proportions, you basically have all of your puzzle pieces ready. You just have to place them into your base. The easiest example would be the ear. Your ear belongs in this quarter right here. And your nose, well, I literally told you where it would belong before, so you already have an indicator on where that belongs. And I can already feel you sitting there being like, the rest is obvious, and I don't even need to explain anything, because you can connect the dots already. I don't have to tell you that lips exist, so yeah, guess you will be able to figure that one out yourself. And connecting the chin with the ears also doesn't require you to be like Da Vinci himself. And like I said before, there's a guideline for the brow line, so that's also kind of self-explanatory. And maybe now you've seen what makes this method so genius. I've just been able to puzzle together a whole face shape just by using these guidelines as, well, as a guide. The only thing that you have to nail in order to get to this part here is this simple base from the beginning. And this inner circle right here that you could see should be about 2/3 of the main circle. Because, well, obviously, if you are drawing these guidelines too big or too small, that would lead to your facial features also having the wrong proportions. Now, I have been explaining this from the side view because, in my humble opinion, that's not only the easiest perspective to draw a face shape, but also to understand this whole topic. But in case you were wondering on how this works from the front, the very same things apply here as well. After all, these guidelines have to be the exact same height, no matter at which perspective you look at them. So, same goes from this perspective. You could easily make out the hairline and the end of the nose from where we cut off the circle again. There is also the guideline for your brows right here in the middle, and again, if you look at the spacing of these, you could easily add the fourth one just by adding another line for the chin. Like I said, they just have the same spacing. Again, a pretty easy face shape just by filling in the blanks with this simple base. Now, Andrew Loomis was kind of a tryhard with this, so when drawing a basic Loomis head, you could totally go ahead and use his measurements, but there's always the question of how important this actually is when people sometimes have different eyes and other facial features, and even Loomis himself was a fan of diversifying faces and not always just perfectly measuring every feature. After all, if you would draw a real-life person, you would always have to measure their proportions manually anyways. All in all, I would recommend giving his original book a read. It's like 80 years old by now, so I don't think it's much of a problem now if I provide you guys with a download to the PDF. There's gonna be a download link at the end of the video. TLDR, I think this is a bit much, but if you want to learn all of these guidelines by heart, all the more power to you. Now, there is still one thing that you are probably wondering about, and that is how to draw this face in perspective. You could easily nail drawing the front and side view in no time, but like with every drawing in perspective, this is where it gets tricky. Because in order to understand where to place these features in a 3D space, your guidelines would also have to be 3D in order for you to do that. It always looks a bit more complicated than it actually is. You have your usual 2D guidelines, and then you just gotta have them intersect with the guidelines from the front. It's not impossible or something, but yeah, if you're like a total beginner, this could be a bit too much for you at first. Because now you would also have to draw these facial features in a 3D space as well. And in order to hammer home the point even more, and by point I mean this right here, there's actually this polygon looking at that Loomis came up with, and having these planes in mind could help you maybe understanding a face in 3D better. But my personal opinion on the matter is that from here on out, it's all actually just practice. There's no real shortcut for all of this. If you're kind of able to draw decent 3D figures, practicing this face daily for a couple of days or weeks is going to make you better at it. So yeah, I don't think there's much of a shortcut for learning this. But yeah, if you want to learn how to draw faces in perspective perfectly, go ahead and learn this polygon head by heart. Oh, and also there's an advanced version. Yeah, have fun with that. Now, all of that was a lot of input, but now that you've hopefully understood all of it, let's give it a shot by actually drawing a Loomis head. Alright, let's do this, step by step. Just a couple of disclaimers before we actually start. Please draw bigger. I still see how a couple of you guys are drawing very tiny, but if you would want to have a clear overview for practicing, you should draw in a similar size to the one that I'm drawing here. Otherwise, you can't spot your mistakes and don't know what you need to improve about your art later on. Also, you can toggle down the speed of the video if you don't want to pause over and over again, but most importantly, patience. Especially things like a head in perspective is not gonna work out on the first try, so don't feel bad if you need like a dozen tries or something. That's normal. Also, if you see me use special tools like my eraser pen for example, you don't have to ask where you can buy them. I have an art supply list on my website, it's all linked there. Hashtag not sponsored. Like I said before, we are starting with the side view, because I think that's the easiest perspective to draw for starters. Just like you would expect, I start with a circle and the crosshairs. Now, next thing would be obviously this inner circle, and this inner circle is 2/3 of the whole thing. So the way that I'm handling and measuring this is to split each side into 3 parts. That way you can be sure the size is accurate. Now everything's ready, I'll just add the guidelines for the hairline, brow line and nose. The only thing missing here is the guideline for your chin, and that's also pretty easy since it's all the same distance. So measuring that one can be quite easy. And now by adding the middle line for the face and also adding our jaw, that's the basic face shape done already. I will proceed to now add some basic features, just like I explained it before. Drawing eyebrows to the brow line, the nose ending at your nose guideline, and so on. Actually, I'm also adding a neck and stuff, but you obviously do not need to do that. What's also optional is the guideline for the cheekbones. That doesn't really do a lot in this perspective. I'll just add it because of OCD and stuff. And that's actually it for when it comes to the silhouette. What I'm doing at this point now is to lightly erase over everything, just to make things a bit clearer. I just think it's a lot easier for you guys to see what's going on this way. And after adding some details, that's your basic Loomis head from the side. And I forgot to draw a hairline, but I think you'd still get the gist. Now from the front view, your base is getting a bit trickier. You would obviously start out again by drawing your circle and obviously your crosshairs. That doesn't change. And just like before, I'm also measuring out 2/3 of this inner circle. Because again, 2/3 are the height at which I'm cutting off the sides, just like I've explained at the beginning of the video. The only thing left for this base here would be the guideline for the chin. Again, just use the very same distance as the other horizontal guidelines and you're good. I'll also add these cheekbone guidelines, which again, it's optional, but I just want to make you guys understand all of this when it comes to drawing perspective later on. Only thing left here would be to add a jaw in order to complete the face shape. And also correct this awful cheek guideline on the left, because what was I even doing? And now for the facial features. I'll block them in once again, and there are the eyes, which I'm making damn sure that they are on the same line, you know, just to be safe. Then there's your nose, which sits on the nose guideline, and it usually ends right around where your eyes are. Oh, and your ears are also on their own designated place. Maybe you remember, but they sit in this quarter on the side view. And if you think about it, these are the very same guidelines here, so you also know how big exactly they need to be. Oh, and this time I'm not forgetting about the hairline. Don't worry, you don't need to say anything. It's actually pretty easy. Your hairline is just the upper guideline that you would have to connect with your ears. And that only leaves the mouth. Your basic Loomis head usually has the mouth at the very bottom of the circle, so that's why I'm adding the lips as well. Okay, that's the face shape and everything placed where it should be placed. At this point, I'm lightly erasing over everything again, just to make this next step a bit easier. So yeah, just adding a couple of details once again. I'm just trying my best here to stay neutral with this drawing and not to make it too stylized or make it a manga drawing. I'm trying to stay neutral here when it comes to the style. And yeah, that's it for the front view. Alright, now for the last one. Like I said before, this is the hardest one. This takes a lot of tries, especially for beginners, so don't worry if it doesn't work out right away. I know I sound like a broken record at this point, but yes, you start with a circle and a couple of crosshairs. This time though, we'll do it in perspective, so you will need to see things in perspective here. Now, you know what's coming. I'm cutting off the sides, or side, because you can only see one side here. Oh, and I'm also going to add a crosshair on the side as well. Since this cutoff part is now a flat plane, your crosshair on the side is also going to be flat. Okay, so far so good. Now I'm just adding the same guidelines as I did before. You know, like the guidelines from the side view. Yeah, I'll add them exactly like I did before, same placements. And now there's obviously something missing here, and it's the exact same guidelines, but from the front. Again, just like we did before. Same guidelines, nothing changed here. This is where it gets tricky though, because I think it's always helpful imagining these guidelines literally like they would go around the corner. I think this is how you know if you're good enough when it comes to your 3D drawing skills. This is a bit harder than just drawing a flat plane from the side. And last but not least, there's still this middle line missing now, but you'll just have to extend the middle line from your crosshairs for that, and you're good. If you are now able to add the jaw, you're done with the face shape. The jaw is just connecting your ears with your chin, so that's one of the easiest things so far. Okay, and this step is one immense help to help you out with the face shape. Maybe you remember this useless cheekbone guideline from before. It just connects the middle of your ear with your jaw. And still, it doesn't really seem to do anything here. But on the other side, it's a very good way of completing your face shape. Okay, I know that was a lot, and actually kudos if you did this first try. Chances are you need to practice this a couple of times before you nail it, but if you didn't, well, congratulations. I'll just continue with adding the facial features, and I'm actually adding them as a polygon version. Just like the one that I showed you at the beginning of the video. By drawing especially the nose that way, it makes it a lot easier to understand in perspective. I think you can tell that Loomis really put a lot of thought into this method. And yeah, once I added everything, you know what's coming, right? You guys know the last step. The last step is to go ahead and subscribe to this channel. Lightly erase over everything. That other part was optional, but just saying, the next video will be about how to pursue your art as a career, like how to publish your own manga, comic or novel and so on, so maybe you want to stick around for that video. Subscribing could maybe help you out with getting notified when that video drops. And yes, I'm not forgetting about the hairline again, don't worry. Also, I did promise you guys a download to the original PDF by Loomis, right? Again, the original book by Andrew Loomis is like 80 years old by now, so I don't think providing the original book as a PDF download is all that much of a problem. And you can get the download link, sure thing. The only thing I would want in return is for you to comment my name. Come on, it's not that hard. I said it at the beginning of the video, right? Just comment a little thank you along with my name. Don't be shy. Say my name.